And just time to look back at the British Grand Prix, which truly was an historic weekend for British motorsport. An incredible points advantage for the UK-based Mercedes team, a record-setting 6th British Grand Prix win for Lewis Hamilton, and most notably, an incredible achievement for regular Silverstone spectator Pete Wilson of Ipswich, who for the first time after the race managed to find his car and leave the car park in under 17 hours.
Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Zog, and with me today are Richard.
Hello.
And Sarah Leach.
Hello.
And there is no Gareth today. Gareth is away, so we are doing the show without you, Gareth. Yeah,
Hi,
sorry.
Gareth.
hope you're having a good time in America. Actually, do you know where he'll be? Right? Is he going to be?
He posted something on social media that he was having breakfast somewhere in America.
Breakfast in America.
Breakfast in America.
Hey, that could almost be an album title.
It's a small place. I'm sure wherever it is. I think I've been to the place where he's having breakfast. The American breakfast place.
The American
Yeah,
breakfast
there's
place.
only one.
Well,
This is actually the first Gareth Jones on Speed episode that he hasn't been in, so I know that he's been looking forward to listening to this.
well, let's hope it lives up to your expectations.
As long as they're fairly low.
Yeah, keep them low. Keep them low.
So, welcome to Gareth Jones on holiday. He's
And
not,
welcome
he's busy, but
welcome
anyway.
to us without Gareth Jones.
Yeah, in Zog's cellar.
Surrounded by car parts.
Can I just say it is a very well-themed cellar. You've got tyre cars here.
Tyre cars?
Tyre cars, car tyres.
Car tyres. Some Venezuelan...
Beaver cheese.
Venezuelan arrows over there in the corner.
What?
Old...
Venezuelan arrows?
My granddad got them in Venezuela years and years ago.
Like arrows as in...
As in...
Oh, right. I can't even see those. I can see a stack of tyres. Is that a parcel shelf over there?
Yeah, with assorted
And I saw-
chocolate-related equipment.
There's
Couple of fishing rods.
Sarah's leaning on a shelf that's got some oil on it and some other car parts.
Yep.
It sounds like we're making this up,
Yeah.
like we're trying to paint pictures.
This is a
with
very,
words.
very
It's
exciting place to be, as you can tell.
genuinely
Basically,
Zog's
Top
cellar.
Gear original oil.
Oh my god!
no. That's
car wash.
that's branded.
Can I
That's
look at
branded
it?
Top Gear
Branded
car
car
I
wash.
think
That
it's
was
branded car. I bet there's the words on the back because I used to write.
Did you write? Did you write the
one of my
blurb
jobs- hang
on
I'll
the
look
back
at
of this?
Oh my god!
Brand-
It's from M&S. Jesus Christ! Some say the stick doesn't need skin, but you do. Take care of your bodywork with this race cream. No, I didn't write that because I wouldn't have written that. That sounds awful. But
It
yeah,
was
one
a
of my
birthday
jobs
present
when
a
I
couple of
worked on
years ago.
Top Gear, I used to.
Right,
I
on
used
car
to
wash
have to
products.
write the blurb for the back of Top Gear branded stuff occasionally.
So that's the glamorous life of a top TV script editor.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting made to do the stuff no one else wants to do. That's extraordinary. This is a great testament to the absolute nonsense that.
And
Top Gear
as far as I
gets
can remember, I
put
think actually. I don't think I've ever used that. That seems to be a full.
Do you know what's
that
good
is
about it though?
bottle
That
of
is
car
a
wash.
faux
Bottle
bottle
of,
of oil though,
yeah.
because it's got the little clear strip up the side that they have on oil bottles. Are you sure people won't accidentally put it on the same shelf as they keep their oil on, and then accidentally put body wash into the sump of their car? No, I think
And they
that'll
would
be
have said
fine.
that. No,
Yeah,
not.
that's true.
They
not
used
my
to. The
problem.
other thing they used to do. There was once I had to write the words for the back of a remote control Stig quad bike, and it was plainly obvious to me that what they'd done is they'd just taken a generic remote control quad bike and painted the rider white and put it in a Top Gear branded box and charged about twice as much for it.
Isn't that-
I wrote some really cynical words for the back of the thing about, thank you for purchasing this old
It's
tat.
cheap knockoff.
And that got told off and we weren't allowed to do that.
You can't be too honest in
Well,
when you're
I
writing
think so.
Marketing blurb.
It's,
but-
Anyway.
Anyway.
Getting ahead in advertising, isn't it, that? Volvo, they're boxy, but they're good. That old.
Hey, I'd buy a Volvo on that basis. Okay, let's get back to current events rather than current surroundings.
Yeah.
What's been happening in the world of F1? We had a Grand Prix recently.
we had a
and,
British Grand Prix.
We had a British Grand Prix, and we know somebody who was there,
Yeah.
who can tell us in person
Exclusively
what happened.
from the British Grand Prix, because no one else was
Richard,
there.
what happened?
Now it's apparently
it was really
it was a cracker. They say.
Yeah. I had a cracker, but I was on a bit of a blag, and I had a couple of glasses of wine while I was watching the race, which always makes it go.
No.
And we were in quite a good spot. We were on the inside of Stowe Corner as well, which is a good place to watch in as much as you get a good, clear view of the cars coming all the way up and through that corner and off. So it's not a bad place to be standing. But the race itself was pretty good. I mean, do you know what's funny? That you know how anyone who's ever been to a Formula One race, you realise that your window of opportunity. That's why it's quite good on the inside of Stoke, because at least you see the cars for sort of 10 seconds maybe as they pass by. But I think anyone who's ever been to a Formula One race, if you've got a line of sight on one of the big screens, you find you're watching that way more than you're really watching the cars
I agree.
go by.
I've been only blessed once really to be into the corporate suites, where actually my Formula One experience, I managed to get into the Australian Grand Prix. I had Arnold Schwarzenegger in my corporate suite.
Ooh,
yeah, so long story short, I'll give you the short version. But yeah, you have this small window where you see the cars zoom past. And I just watched it on the screen the whole time with Arnold Schwarzenegger over my shoulder, of course.
Well, this thing, you have to actually be quite close to the action before you really want to see, to see the real thing rather than the beautiful shot on the big screen.
So we had the opportunity to stand on this sort of roof terrace thing to watch where you could see the track.
That would have been quite cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And because it was sort of full corporate swankorama, they'd got TVs on the roof terrace. But I sat with a couple of mates of mine who were there in the downstairs bit because you could actually hear the commentary, and we watched the start from down there because that was the best view. And then we were like, we'll just watch the start, and we'll go upstairs and we'll take in the action, the atmosphere. And then, of course, the first few laps were the really good bits, and we ended up sort of glued to the TV and standing up. You know when things are getting a little bit exciting when you suddenly find that you've involuntarily stood up, and we were doing that. And then we finally went upstairs. But even before that, when Hamilton was making his moves on Bottas,
and they were having a real
tussle, and we could hear the crowd every time it looked like Hamilton was about to nail it.
It was
the
quite
crowd
exciting.
noise and the crowd noise, even though we were still indoors at that point, we were like, want to go outside but can't tear ourselves away from the TV. But you could hear the roar of the crowds because there's a massive grandstand on the outside of Stoke. So that was great. That was really exciting.
The British crowd absolutely loved Lewis, didn't they? At the end of the Grand Prix, I mean, he was crowd surfing, was he not?
They certainly love Lewis, and Lewis, I think has a genuine, love, real affection for the British fan. But also, I think it's worth noting that the Silverstone crowd tends to be it's actually not too it's not too jingoistic a crowd. The Silverstone crowd, they love good races, they love good drivers and good performances, and they're not they're not just cheering for the British drivers. Of course, when you've got Lewis winning the race, demonstrating what a truly extraordinary driver he is. I mean, one of the high points of the race for me actually was the very end. Even though, in the end we had a race that, as widely predicted, Lewis won, and that Lewis won having, led for, the back half of the race really pretty untroubled, which doesn't sound like a very exciting event, but the manner in which he did it and the way in which in that last lap. He just kept the hammer down and put in the fastest lap, set a new lap record when he really didn't need to. I thought that was just magnificent.
Extra point as well.
Extra
I keep
point
forgetting about that.
Yeah, you see,
it's
worth
sort of.
It is worth getting extra point.
It was a huge thing at the beginning of the season, wasn't it? All the drivers were really pushing for the extra point, but it's sort of that whole, excitement of it has almost fallen by the wayside a little bit, but
it is a good rule change. I think it is a good thing they've introduced that. But getting away from the front of the race, I mean, the race was a cracker further back down, and the battle between Leclerc and Verstappen was just fabulous. And
they'll say the future of F1.
Yeah, well, if we're going to have a lot more of that in the next few years, I think we're all pretty happy about that.
I was on my way home from the British Grand Prix, which I went to. Might have mentioned that, but I was because Right, so
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah.
have a swig of
Have some more
Top
booze.
Gear body wash. Just be careful you don't mistake it for the oil.
Yeah.
Because I got a lift, so I had a couple of glasses of wine, so I was able to sit in the back of a car, and I was just looking at my phone, and on Twitter someone had put up a graphic of here are the Constructors' Championship standings after that British Grand Prix, and Mercedes are miles ahead. 407 points.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's
almost.
insane. And then Ferrari, because second place, Ferrari, 243 points. And then Red Bull, 191. So that's like, those are the big hits. Those are the top three.
But there
and
is
still a massive
there is
gap
a change in the middle order. Yeah.
Well, this is what really struck me. This is the reason I bring this up is because then it's like, so the third place team, Red Bull, 191 points, and then there's such a huge gap. The fourth place team have 60 points.
And that fourth place team is
McLaren.
Hey.
Who'd have thunk it?
Best of the rest.
And if you then accept that, sort of, you kind of ignore the top three and just then treat the rest of this like a league table itself.
Yes.
And the gap between McLaren and fifth place Renault is actually quite big, because McLaren are on 60 and Renault are on 39. So McLaren aren't just sort of squeaking ahead.
I mean, I think
they're actually, for that.
And they're McLaren Renault as well.
Well, yeah, which really raises the question: to what extent is McLaren doing what I think a lot of fans would have expected them to do in the long run, and pull themselves back up and start delivering the kind of performance that you expect of McLaren? And to what extent are Renault woefully underperforming, given that McLaren are outscoring them so much with their own engine? Is it are Renault doing a bad job, or is McLaren doing a good job?
Which you'd have to think McLaren's doing a good. Excuse me. Sorry, one more cough.
Take another
swig. I would have thought that McLaren are just doing a good job, but is it the engine change? I don't know, because have Red Bull improved any more with the Honda engine? I
mean, certainly, McLaren made terrific choices with their drivers, and in Sainz and Norris, they've got a terrific pair there who are getting. I'm sure if they had Verstappen and Hamilton in that car, they'd be doing even better than Sainz and Norris would. But that said, I don't think Sainz and Norris are really leaving much on the table there. They're
no, it's good. That's the thing. They're doing all right. It's we sort of mentioned in the last show, isn't it? But it's quite nice to see McLaren pull themselves
up. I think,
up.
yeah,
they're still 131 points behind the next team up. But if you just sort of cut off, there's a top three, and then there's the rest, and they're the best of the rest. Which, given how dismal they've been, they're doing all right. I was also going to mention the fact that so Renault fifth place, 39 points, and sixth place on 26 points, Alfa Romeo, and they're like the not mentioned team.
They're not at all. They don't. The commentary doesn't really cover them.
It's so weird. Like Raikkonen, you sort of sometimes forget that Raikkonen's still in the sport. It's like he's not doing anything exceptional, but nor is he he's keeping out of trouble, and he's scoring a few points. Because I think he's doing the heavy lifting. I haven't actually checked this, but I'm assuming that's those points.
Well, he at the very least, he wasn't spinning out of the race and causing a safety car.
It's just nothing ever happens. He just drives around doing a reasonable bit of work, considering it's not the fastest car. And they're 6 points. They're ahead of Racing Point by about 7 points.
Racing Point.
Exactly
Racing Point.
What's the point?
Lance Stroll. I never hear his name as well. I mean,
if you're a midfield runner that's not crashing all the time and doing and not getting noticed for the wrong reasons, it is quite hard to get noticed, though.
Yeah, well, that's weird. So I just realised that Racing Point are in 7th and Toro Rosso are in 8th, but they're both on 19 points. And then in 9th place is Haas with 16 points.
So Haas,
it feels like they constantly get attention.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're getting a lot of attention at the moment.
We'll come on to that in a minute, but...
well, just to wrap this up with one final, in 10th place, you could have guessed this already, Williams, and they have 0 points. So the only team that has 0 points. It's a sad indictment to the state of things.
How do you think George Russell will be feeling in his debut season?
I mean...
Deflated. Although perhaps he's driving in F1, he'd be pleased about that.
On the one hand, I think up to a point, when you get a break like that, you can be pretty happy to get the experience, to know that you're doing a good job in the equipment that you're given, which I think Russell is doing. But that said, if you think that you can score points given good enough equipment, and if you think you can win races given good enough equipment, and the guy's a racing driver, he undoubtedly thinks that
comes with a job.
It's going to get frustrating. So I think this is probably getting to the. Yeah, I would imagine he's starting to get at least a little bit frustrated by now.
And he could be outed at any moment. I mean, there's a couple of previous Formula One drivers racing around in Formula E this year.
But given that he's outperforming Kubica, I think I wouldn't. I mean, if I was Russell, I wouldn't be that worried about my place. He seems to be getting the better of Kubica most of the time, and given how highly rated, Kubica is in the sport, I think that means that Russell's doing a respectable job, and have Williams got the money to go and buy more expensive drivers at the moment?
They won't get their money back if they go, we'd like to return this.
Hopefully the next couple of years by 2021.
No, we don't have the receipt. Okay, all right, we can just have store credit at the big driver shop. Who can we have? Oh God! What, Daniel Kvyat? No, we don't want him. I didn't know he was even on the market.
We've got a very nice Esteban Ocon here.
Yes, we've got a lovely Ocon.
Very lightly used in the last year. One careful owner, I think.
What about, have you got a Gutierrez? No. Oh, there's a picture in the window. I'm sorry, he's spoken for. I saw him doing a little talk at the Grand Prix. The other thing that I forgot I was going to say about a cool thing that happened to me at the Grand Prix was that I met Bernd Maylander.
Safety car driver,
man.
Safety car supremo.
Because he vaguely knows someone I know who, and he came in to do a little talk in this thing we're in, and then one of my mates I was with knows him a little bit, and so I got to shake his hand. And not too firmly, because I didn't want to,
I imagine he's super, super cool.
Such a cool guy. And he did this little talk, and he was really funny.
He must be the most unknown driver in the whole of...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Unless
it's
you
like
sort of...
He's like the...
The kind of ratio of recognition to number of times you've seen him on screen must be kind of, off the scale.
Well, he's always got the helmet on, and in fact...
Just like the guy of Top Gear.
Yeah, like that, but even cooler. Because he's got, and sure enough, he said, "I don't think I'll be out today. I'm not, but I can never know. I might be out 5 times." Yeah. And then, sure enough, they did have a safety car, but he's got his helmet on, and he said he got a flight from Birmingham Airport straight after the race, and he's like, got my hire car keys in the pocket of his Nomex. He's got his bag in the boot. So basically, at the end of the race, assuming he's still parked in the safety car sort of launch spot at the end of the pit lane or whatever, as soon as they go, okay, that's it, the cars are all in, Burnt, you're clear. He's like, engine off. Runs out of the back of the paddock into the hire car. I didn't get a chance to ask him what it was, but in my head it's like it's an Astra or something. It's just really dismal. And he's out of there, and he's trying to get out of there before the crowds, because he's like, I've got a flight, and they always do this to me. They book me on a flight that's like right at the end of the race, and you just think, imagine how hard Bernd Maylander is going to whip that hire car to get to Birmingham Airport. And he was even going, I've done it before, I know the layout. So it's like, great racing drivers, always thinking ahead, always strategising. He's got the strategy in his head. Yes, I will. It's a Hertz car. I will put it here and I will drop it. He's got it all in his mind. And he's saying, I will get stuck in traffic. I know I will, but it's okay. I've got my clothes and my bag is on the passenger seat. I'm going to start taking my race suits off. So there's people probably on the M1 looking over and going, who's that guy getting undressed in his Astra? What's happening here? Who's a dude? Total dude.
If he can actually change before he gets to the airport, I'll be very impressed.
I think I wouldn't bet against it. He's a legend.
Any other driver thoughts from the Grand Prix? I mean, one thing that came to me was simply that having talked about Gasly in the last show and how much he needed to pull his socks up, he did pull his socks up this week.
Sock pulling.
Yeah, I think he put the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, do you think he's done enough to keep his place in the team for a while?
I think he's for a while. Yeah, I think he's still on watch.
I mean, I agree. I think he was definitely below par for the first
But
season.
This
was the kind of performance you'd expect him to
I think
deliver.
so. He's answered. He's definitely resurrected.
Yeah.
But I think he's still on watch.
Well,
do you know what?
He needs to keep delivering. That's the thing.
He needs to keep delivering.
He can't have just one weekend. He's got to keep doing it.
Who would actually replace him? Would they put that? They don't have the depth that they used to have at Red Bull, but
But you can always find somebody if you're determined to replace him in the car. You can always find somebody.
So.
And the other thing, actually, Vettel, he had that stupid collision with Verstappen.
It's not going great, is it?
It's not. And
I would say that, but he's.
It does seem to be a little bit at the moment as if the rate at which Vettel is heading, towards really seeming like not such a great driver anymore. Really,
he makes a lot of unforced errors.
He's looking quite sketchy this year, don't you think?
I thought he was looking a bit sketchy last year, but then it sort of hasn't improved for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it certainly got worse with.
Was he the one
with
that
Leclerc?
That's the embarrassing thing, isn't it? That he's got a teammate now who is prepared to hand him his arse in a bucket.
But he had that with Daniel Ricciardo, and he didn't like that either.
I just looked up the drivers' standings because we were talking about the team standings. Again, you sort of forget. Obviously, Hamilton's leading the championship, 223 points, and Bottas is behind him, 184.
The championship is done, obviously.
But Verstappen is third, so Vettel is fourth, but Leclerc is fifth, and Vettel's on 123, and Leclerc is on 120. So that is squeaky.
That is kind of incredible.
That's just
really.
Yeah, it really is. And then old Peter Gasly is in sixth place, but he's only got 55 points. So Leclerc ahead of him, 120. And there's a massive gap there. And then I think I said on the last show that Norris is showing Sainz. This is how we do it in the McLaren. Well, not so. I was talking out of my bum because Sainz is in seventh place with 38 points. Then it's Raikkonen, the stalking horse. Raikkonen is like we just said, he doesn't
quietly getting on with the job, quietly delivering.
Are we sure it's even him? Because he's just got, I can't be bothered. And there's someone else who's doing the job for him. But then, Norris is in ninth on 22 points. So actually, Sainz is actually a bit of a chunk. And Norris on the same number of points as Daniel Ricciardo, 22.
Scraping in at top 10 is Daniel Ricciardo.
So there we go.
Keeping the dream alive.
There we are. The reason it's also just good to do a little points review is because the British Grand Prix was the 10th race of the season. It's a 21 race championship. And so we are, as of next week, German Grand Prix, that'll be sort of halfway point.
Yeah, sort of halfway through the race. We'll be halfway through the season. So we are approaching halfway point. Good time to take stock. But apart from the on-track action, there's been stuff happening. There's been stuff happening off-track that's been quite entertaining / confusing,
/
mostly / laughable. Yeah, laughable. Rich Energy, Haas F1. What the hell is going on?
I've no idea. It's giving me a headache.
Can anybody?
And that's not just because I've had some rich energy.
Okay. As far as I can make out, in the last couple of weeks, Rich Energy announced on their official Twitter account that they were withdrawing their sponsorship of Haas. Mm-hmm. Then they announced that somebody had taken over the Twitter account and been tweeting out who wasn't authorised to, and that they were in fact still sponsoring Haas. William Story, the ZZ Top lookalike who was in charge of Rich Energy, is now no longer in charge of Rich Energy.
It was his own company he founded, wasn't it? And he's been outed.
Well, did he found it? I think that's probably getting into detail that is maybe slightly murky. But he was the boss in any case, majority shareholder. He's been pushed out. He is no longer in charge of Rich Energy. Rich Energy is now no longer called Rich Energy and is called Lightning Volt.
Yes.
Lightning Bolt.
The logo William saga. Story and Rich Energy are being sued by Red Bull.
Oh, yes.
And by the bike company whose logo they were using.
Well, that legal action is now
complete. Have I missed anything?
But then Rich Energy hasn't paid the money they were supposed to pay to White Bikes.
Right, which is why White Bikes are now suing them for the money that they were awarded in damages in the court case over their logo.
They passed there was a date was set, I think it was the 18th of July, when they had to stop using the old logo. And looking at their Twitter account,
they have
sure
released
enough,
a new
they have
logo.
a new logo which looks like they've sort of spliced the old one in half, mirrored it in Photoshop, and it still sort of has a kind of stag antler theme going on. I was just looking at
Clearly looks like antlers.
It's still antlers, but I suppose it doesn't look like...
Yeah.
I mean, they could have at least changed the colours or something.
I think it was on the 16th of July, the Rich Energy official Twitter account tweeted, William Storey, founder of Rich Energy, has sold his majority stake in the legal entity of Rich Energy Limited to a third party. This was in disgust at conduct of duplicitous minority stakeholders. In the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, he'll be back. Now, obviously, this is him writing about himself in a mad third-person way. But what was interesting about this is the photo that he attached to this tweet is a picture of him, beardy, strange man that he is, with his arm round Bernie Ecclestone. Who looks like he's done a face app on himself. That's like Bernie Ecclestone aged. It's weird how, since we don't see Bernie all the time, he's sort of looking weirdly beardier but older. Like that.
They use that face app.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought it looked
Looking
like
ever so slightly more like a homeless man.
Yeah. It's like weird, isn't it? He's richer than astronauts, but he's wearing what looks like a black leather jacket that he's bought off Shepherd's Bush Market.
Hey, it's the dress down look. Come on, you know, he's allowed. He's allowed.
But look at the state. Now, I've seen William Storey doing this before with his sort of arm round big celebrity type people as if he's their mates, and I swear it's just him going up to them and going, "Can I get a picture, please?" Who knows?
It's from a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, there have also been several legal letters posted on one Twitter account or another that suggests that, you know, the whole relationship between Rich Energy and Haas is not particularly good anymore. I mean, what is going on?
I saw that.
Where?
What's his flap? The team principal, Gunther Steiner.
Gunther Steiner,
who is a legend, and as someone was saying the other day, it's like with all the stuff that's been going on with Rich Energy and with the sort of underperformance of that team with the drivers and all manner of shenanigans. Someone said to me, I cannot wait for the next series of the Netflix Formula One documentary.
Oh yes,
because
please.
The swearing from Gunther Steiner will be off the scale brilliant. But he also was quoted as saying, someone asked him the last race, what's going on with this whole Rich Energy thing, and he was just like, I'm not in school anymore, I can't be doing with this. He basically was just saying that they all need to grow up. He was trying to get on with running a team.
Well, good for him for
quite a good answer, because
it's
mad and also pathetic and also confusing,
and also it's kind of weird that we have. I mean, I guess. Whatever the point of this whole Rich Energy thing is, you know, one assumes that a certain amount of, building up of a brand and gaining brand recognition is part of it. Well, you know, we have all come to know the name of Rich Energy.
They're well
but it's not called Rich Energy anymore.
But it's now not called Rich Energy, and we've never been able to buy a can of it at any point.
Did you say it's Lightning Bolt?
Lightning Volt.
Lightning Bolt. Oh gosh, Lightning Bolt might get involved there.
Cheap though.
Is this one of the?
It sounds like something like, you know, some sort of T-shirt brand I'd buy when I was 10 years old.
It doesn't really sound like a drink, does it? I mean, Rich Energy, I can see that, but Lightning Volt, I don't know.
It's terrible. Also, my
friend
Johnny Smith keeps trying to convince me to change my surname to Energy so that I can say, I'm Rich Energy, and then you can say what you want about it and they can't touch you for it. Yeah, that's my name.
Rich Energy.
You know,
hi, I'm
he might just be onto something there. However, your window of opportunity for doing that has just disappeared.
Well,
you're now going to have to change your name to Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt.
if you want to pursue that particular
avenue of unemployable madness, yeah.
So the Rich Energy Farrago continues. Is it going to? Is this just going to sort of fade away?
Oh, I don't know. I just want it to be
care?
2 years down the line when we'll find out what was really going on here, because it's so bizarre. But I just realised
there must be more to this than meets the eye. There must be more to this than.
If only it was Lightning Bolt, because I was at school with a bloke called Richard Bolt.
No.
Why didn't they call it Rich Bolt or Rich Volt? Either way.
Rich Volt.
It's a better name than Lightning Bolt, which is, let's be honest, toss awful.
I agree that it's a terrible, terrible name. I'm not sure that Rich Volt would have been better.
Well, why don't we ask him?
Hello. I'm looking for a can of Rich Energy. I wonder, is that something you have?
Good old Rich Energy. We're not just there for the bad things in life, like Romain Grosjean's 2019 season, or the taste of Rich Energy. We're there for the nice things too.
Oh, you do? Well, that's marvellous. Yes, my name. Why, yes, it's Reg Bull. No? Oh, okay, well, what about Luke Ozaid? Okay, still. Lightning Volata?
Now, also in Formula One news, the FIA has finally announced the shape of its rules for 2021 and beyond, which has been, this is something that Ross Brawn has been leading a working group on for a while now. And this is a much anticipated rule change affecting the design of the cars quite substantially. We don't have final rules for 2021 yet. This is still a work in progress. There's all kinds of details to be worked out. But
they have released what says ahead of the new proposed revealing at the end of 2019. They're going to talk about these sort of 4 pillars that will be carried out. So they're giving us a taste of what we will see.
Yeah.
So
and that is broadly speaking. I mean, in broad terms, there are aerodynamic changes. We are going to see ground effect back in the cars by design, and simpler front and rear wings. We're going to see generally more prescriptive parameters for the cars, which is, again, broadly speaking, going to mean that the teams have a bit less room to design the cars and have a bit more imposed on them by the rule makers.
Well, so
then there are going to be a couple of... Well,
this is why it seems to be delayed, because they're asking everybody, and they're asking the teams, and obviously the teams...
And they're asking
they need to do that. It would be nice if he could just go, I'm Ross bloody Brawn. I'm telling you what you're going to do, because I won a Formula One World Championship with my team, with my name on it. But he can't, because it's too political.
Apparently they can't. Well, this is interesting, isn't it? You know, although the FIA are the rule makers, in practice they can't actually just make the rules they want to make. And of course, you know, in any sport, you do have to make your rules with some kind of sympathy for the people that are involved in the sport. You have to listen to what people in the sport want, listen to what the fans want. So the question is the direction that the FIA is taking us in with these new rules, is it the right one? Are they making any kind of fundamental mistakes here? I mean, what's your first take on this? I mean, well, we should maybe quickly go over a couple of the other changes. There are they're changing the tyre. There's going to be a big change. The tyres are going from the current 13-inch to 18-inch lower profile tyres.
It's quite a jump, isn't it? That's like going from a sort of the wheels on a 1982 XR2i to the wheels on a 2019 Fiesta ST. They're much bigger.
It is, and
it changes the whole look of the car.
And they're also, but they're also changing. It's not just the look. There's also this question of the compound and whether it's going to be.
They want cars that won't degrade as quickly.
Right.
So
exactly.
Pat Simmons
less degradation, less tyre deg.
Yeah, they've been on what they think has been not necessarily the right way that they've gone in the last 2 years. They think maybe they should have tyres that will last a little bit longer. Not necessarily Le Mans type tyres, because they have spoken to the fans. The fans enjoy the pit stops, and that changes the strategy of a lot of races.
Yep.
So that will stay in, but it
seems that what they're trying to do is to avoid having too much of the racing involving drivers, managing their tyres, and spending more time racing flat out against each other rather than managing their pace so that they can eke another 5 or 10 laps out of this set of tyres in order to make them be able to pull off a particular strategy that will give them a race advantage.
They also want more competitive grids, so they're looking at removing some of the driver aids on the cars, and that's being evaluated ahead of October. And a reduction of car-to-pit telemetry is also being investigated, so less communication between
driver and pit. Yeah, which and that I can see. I mean, I can see two sides to that. On the one hand, in a sense, you should be able to use kind of almost whatever technology is available to you, and particularly if it's just keeping drivers informed. But on the other hand, we admire racing drivers for doing what they do basically single-handed at the wheel. Mm-hmm. We don't really admire them for their skill in taking instructions and advice from the pits. So putting it a bit more onto the drivers, I think that's quite a good idea.
I noticed they're still ignoring my suggestion of banning pit-to-car radio, but introducing car-to-car radio. And you can just phone up any other driver you want,
and have a
as
little
long as we can
word
listen
with them.
in.
I'd like to hear.
And they've got a good bleep machine. I think that'd be brilliant.
Gunther Steiner and that.
The only person from the pits who's allowed to talk to any and all of the drivers is Gunther Steiner, as long as he promises to be Gunther Steiner at all times.
I am now on board with this idea. I like this idea.
See, this is the kind of creative solution that they need. And these rules, I can see what they're trying to do, and it's fair enough. Two things. I think the powertrain stuff isn't mentioned because I think they've agreed with the teams they're going to keep basically the current 1.6 litre engines with the whole hybrid powertrain.
Yeah.
Because too many people have invested too much time and money in this.
In this current generation.
Mercedes and Renault and all the other powertrain suppliers have just gone, no, don't want to change that again. So that's staying as it is. That's something they've already sort of brought their influence to bear on. I did hear this rumour at the British Grand Prix that, which was just sort of tittle-tattle. They were saying that they'd sort of entertained the idea of bringing refuelling back again, if they thought that would bring some benefit. But I don't know. It seems a bit odd to me.
In all honesty, I can't see them doing that simply because there's a real safety angle there, and I think having not had refuelling in the sport for so many years, I can't see them bringing back in an element that introduces the danger of fire in the pit lane. I just can't see them doing that. It's also
contra to this thing. If they're trying in this the hybrid powertrain, the smaller engines, and it's a sort of drive to efficiency, then refuelling sort of is contra to that.
That is
sends
true.
A different message out. Also it's just they've been without it for so long and everyone's managed. So it just seems like why reintroduce the prospect of a flash fire if you don't have to?
Absolutely.
It probably wouldn't reflect well on the sport. I don't know. I mean, if it made the racing better, that would be fine, but I don't think it does.
They have to keep in mind what the objectives of the rule changes are. And one of the objectives, let's remember, is making overtaking easier. And one of the key aspects of that is this aerodynamic change in reintroducing ground effect and changing the design of the front and rear wings. I mean, apart from anything else, simplifying the front and rear wings more or less, with the objective of changing the way that a car that is following closely another car is affected by the turbulence coming off the aero elements of the car in front. And the ballpark figures are that, at the moment, if you're following close behind another car, you're losing about 45% of your downforce, which makes it crazy hard.
Here, the thing I looked at.
Yeah, so 45%.
That's loads.
Yeah, it's loads, and that's why it becomes so hard to overtake, even if you've got a faster car. And that's why for a few years we've had this slightly awkward bodge of the DRS, which, to be fair, works pretty well, but it's a bodge.
Band-aided the problem, to think.
Yeah, it is a bit of a band-aid. It's been a fairly effective one, but you can see why a kind of a more fundamental solution is more attractive. And if they can achieve this objective of going from 50% downforce loss when you're following another car to 5% loss of downforce, which is what they're trying to achieve, and what they say they should achieve with the new design parameters for the cars. If they pull that off, if those numbers do work out, then it is going to make it easier for the following car to overtake, and that should make a significant difference in the racing. Yes, I mean...
It's also interesting that ground effect's back. It's just Gordon Murray sitting at home going, told you.
Yeah, well, and actually, but you see, this raises an interesting thing. I do wonder with the ground effect, though, because, I mean, my simple understanding of ground effect and why it was banned first time around is that they banned ground effect because it was kind of making accidents happen at higher speeds. It sort of shifted the speeds at which cars tended to suddenly fly off corners.
I think it's a bit sort of everything, oh God, nothing, and you're off, isn't it? Right. The other thing that they're proposing, this hasn't gone through because none of it has, but the other thing they're suggesting that they're sort of floating for approval is getting rid of tyre warmers.
Yeah, I was just reading that.
Which is that's interesting. I mean, it sort of means that people come out of the pits and it'll all be a bit skatey.
Yeah, I mean, my first... I would imagine. Well, I mean, my first reaction to that is that sounds like quite a good idea because it's going to play...
To see it.
It's going to...
Tell me the benefits of warming these tyres. Why are tyre blankets beneficial?
They're beneficial because the tyres work at their best. In other words, give the best grip when they've reached a certain operating temperature.
So that's
and
when
the tyre are designed to work
and then
within.
They heat them up even more.
Well, I mean, they'll have had them in the tyre warmers, before the formation. But that's why they're steering and braking during the formation lap to keep the tyre temperature up. They don't because if the tyres get too cold, they lose grip, and obviously that's bad.
So is that creating more management for the driver then to try and warm the tyres up themselves?
Well, I think it is. I would have thought what it means is that for a couple of laps until your tyres get up to temperature, it's going to show a bit more difference between the drivers who have a really good feel for exactly where the grip of their tyre is and the ones that don't.
There's restrictions on the warmers already. I think, and when they come out, they come out of the pits, the tyres are not at their total max temperature they could be, but if they're absolutely stone cold, it's going to be more marked, isn't it? You'll just sort of, there's bits where someone comes out of the pits and just nips in front of the person that they're battling for position for, and then they can usually hold them off while the tyres get full temperature in them. But I suppose if they're really, really skiddy,
but there's going to be less of that. There's going to be less of that, and there's going to be more kind of Grosjean coming out of the pits at British Grand Prix and suddenly spinning on cold. Suddenly spinning on cold tyres.
I somehow suspect that Grosjean won't be in F1 by the time these rules come in, though. That's just a hunch.
We'll see.
The final pillar, they want to make this more financially viable. The Formula One, how will we make this more of a financially viable championship? Which won't be good news for Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, who are financially quite well off.
But do you think they will be able to effectively stop the teams with the deepest pockets always getting an advantage from having more money? Because
I think there's going to be loopholes here because there's no restrictions on marketing. There are no restrictions on driver salary or sort of engineer's salary.
Yeah.
But there's also talk of staffing, getting sort of less people in so they don't...
there's talk of restricting the number of people that each team could have at any race.
Yeah.
Also of more standard components on the car, steering columns, maybe brake components.
Make it really interesting. Say that every team can only have 7 people at a race. See how they get on then. You got the bloke who's doing the aero who's also having to make breakfast. Real old school, the way it used to be in the 50s.
I
don't know.
It'd be a lot more room for error.
It'd be really interesting. Particularly the 7 people include the drivers as well. They've got to ruck in as well. They've got to put the wheels on the car before they set off.
If it was, you could imagine Haas turning up maybe at one race and they're going, we've gone for an extra strong pit crew this time, and we've left one of the drivers behind because we're pretty fed up with these two. We thought we only wanted to bring one to this race.
This is his punishment.
There you go.
Actually, that lady who normally looks after the drivers and then just she's going to drive on a car. Because, to be quite honest, A, her real name is Jamie Chadwick, and B, she can't be worse than the 2 idiots that we've got blundering around for us at the moment. I would all of these things. Let's really think out of the box here.
I mean, that's why some of the salary caps for some of the sports can they do work around them, because you give a player, for example, in football, X amount of pounds for a year, but then you also give him all these sponsorship endorsements and just fill his salary up with all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the team still comes under the salary cap. So I think there will be a lot of
any kind of cost cap is famously hard to police, hard to implement. I think they can certainly try and introduce some changes in the rules to bring costs down, and that's got to help the midfield and back of the back. But it's a very, very difficult thing to do, and in the end, you can never, like I say, you can never stop the teams who've got the most money finding some way to get an advantage out of having all that much money.
Well, mind you, though, that they are trying to sort of obviously get onto that, because they're talking about standardised wheel rims, standardised standardised brake systems, a ban on hydraulic suspension systems, a restriction on the use of certain exotic materials, standardised radiators, a frozen specification of gearbox parameters, and standardised pit equipment for all teams.
I mean, some of those are sort of just taking a little bit further some rules that I think they have already. I mean, some materials are banned already. Using beryllium alloys, I think, in engines was banned a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a shame because it was brilliant to but their tyres are already standardised, I suppose, aren't they? Everyone used to say the ECUs are standardised.
Yeah. In terms of, to wrap this up, what's your general take then on how these rules are you optimistic about whether this is going to take us in the right direction?
I think so. I just think any change is a good change in this kind of direction to try and create some sort of parity between the teams. Because at the moment, there are a lot of people complaining that it's just, a one-team, one-man show. And there's been, the word boring's come out. So, there has been some cracking races.
The last two races?
The Austrian Grand Prix was great. There's been some races that I've loved watching, and you've seen some really fun things happen, and
you always have a couple of dull races in the season.
There's always good stories, throughout the race. But, it'd be great to see a number of different drivers have the chance to be the top. It'd be, a bit like the Premier League season, for example, last year took everybody right up to the very last game. Wouldn't it be great if we had that in Formula One, which I think is what they're trying to achieve. So I think any move in that direction is a good direction.
Richard, what's your
I
take?
agree with Sarah. They've got to try what they can just to close it up. I think this will probably get bastardised by the objections of teams and drivers, and they could do more, but they're constantly caught in this dilemma between, really, to make the racing absolutely as exciting and equal as possible, it would probably involve kind of really simplifying things and removing a lot of the tech, and they're caught in this problem where they also want to be the pinnacle of motorsport, and this sort of white heat of technology that they, the road car manufacturers who are involved in, often just in name really, and checks that they write, would try and claim it feeds back into their cars, and it's mostly bollocks. But the point is that it's a good marketing exercise. If you suddenly have all these cars that they just run non-hybrid engines and very little aero, and they reduce a lot of the technology that's on the cars, then there's less marketing benefit for a lot of these people who are writing the checks that pay for the whole thing to happen. And then it sort of ceases to exist in its current form, which I don't know. Maybe it needs that. Maybe it needs a bit of dismantling and building up again. I just don't know. I can understand. It'd be very easy to say, no, just get rid of everything. Get rid of all driver aids, electronics, just ban it. Go back to some kind of, sort of almost like NASCAR principles where it's just really simple, really grassroots. But it's too late. We're too far down a different path for that. And let's be honest, Formula One is, for most people taking part, is a marketing exercise. Yeah,
but in what you're saying there, you also, you're touching on, what you say about that marketing element of the technology is absolutely right. But also there is this element that for a lot of the people that are involved in the sport, from the team's point of view, and for a lot of the fans, advanced technology and feeling and seeing teams, deploying different kinds of technology, and advanced tech is part of the appeal of the sport. And in a way, and there is a tension here between making the sport better, making the show better, which basically means, making the cars more similar, and giving teams and designers more freedom to do wacky, crazy F1 tech stuff. You can't have both of those, so there has to be some compromise in that sort of, go wild with the tech side.
Yeah.
Perhaps to make the racing better.
But when someone comes up with an amazing piece of tech, if it's that advantageous, it almost immediately gets shut down again. In fact, going back to ground effects and things like that, they were sort of fairly quickly shut down because it seemed like they were giving some people an advantage, as well as that other.
Some of these things are so secretive. They literally put blankets and they put all these walls up, so the other team doesn't see what their car looks like or what their, the intricacies of their engines and all their designs and everything. They're very secretive. So it's sort of.
Now, on this note, sort of, and this sort of belief, or this attempt to sell people on the idea that Formula One improves road cars and there's a direct sort of relationship with technology, that is pretty tenuous.
It is pretty tenuous.
I went last week to the launch of that new Lotus hypercar, the Evira, whatever it's called.
Evira?
What is it? Evija. It's Evija. I think it's Evija.
Evija.
I think it's Evija. It's Evija. I've just remembered it's Evija.
Okay, Evija. There we go. You heard it here first.
Anyway, it's the new electric Lotus, and the stats on it are mind-boggling. 2,000 horsepower. 2 million quid as well.
Wow.
We'll gloss over that. They're only going to make 130 of them. This is really, because in a way...
Are they going to make it, though?
They swear it's happening. It's happening. In fact, when was the launch? Like last Tuesday, the car on display, it does work. It'll drive up to 40 miles an hour. It's a show car.
It does look pretty good.
Absolutely, yeah, it looks pretty good. And they swear absolutely that's what it'll look like. The production car will look like that, give or take a few little sort of tweaks, mainly because they'll then... The first engineering mule is going to be ready next week, they were claiming, and that'll start the dynamic testing, and they'll get it all ready, and they're supposed to be able to get the first deliveries will be next year, I think they said. But the reason I bring this up, apart from the fact it was quite cool, it's a cool looking thing, it's interesting. I mean, I do find it sort of, if you're going to be a purist about it, you're going, well, that's not. Lotus don't do that sort of thing, but I know why they're doing it. They're making a big noise. It's the first new car they've done in 10 years.
Yeah,
and even that wasn't really new. So it's like this is the start of something new. They've got the money from Geely now behind them, and they're going to do some interesting stuff. So in a couple of years' time, we'll probably see a new Elise.
And it'll be nice to get excited about a new Lotus for a change.
So that's cool. So I can understand why they want. This is like firing a shotgun in the air. This is just going, look at us, look! Like when Homer Simpson was tasked with promoting a bowling alley and he fired a gun in the air while shouting bowling. This is Lotus firing a gun in the air and going, Lotus! Look at us, we're Lotus! And that's fair enough. Yeah, people have been paying attention a little bit more, so they just got to keep that momentum up. The reason I bring this up is because I was talking to someone from Lotus, and he said, oh yeah, there's some sort of stuff in this car that's come from Formula E.
Really?
Oh.
So
actually,
racing does it, because it was Williams. Williams have done all the electric tech in it.
But
no secret.
I put it to you that maybe that is more likely to be happening between Formula E and road cars at the moment than between Formula One cars and road cars at the moment, because both electric racing and electric road cars are still relatively new. We are still developing both of them, whereas we've been doing racing and driving on the road with petrol cars uninterrupted for over 100 years. So we've had, there's a lot more work to be done on the electric thing. There are a lot more clever tricks to be worked out. So there's more room for the clever racing folks to come up with.
A manufacturer like Jaguar, they're pumping so much money into Formula E, but when you go and buy a road car that's electric, there's a lot of people that will gravitate towards a Jaguar, or whether that's a direct relation from
Mr.
the Formula
Porter
E
did.
to
not because of Formula E though, but I think there is a bit of crossover, because
There
that's
is
the
a
thing. The road car
Yeah.
people who are developing the electric Jag, like I heard ages ago before that car came out, they were paying quite close attention to sort of some of the motor stuff that was going on in Formula E, because also they were just learning about how motors work under extreme pressure, and it's like racing is quite tough on them.
Mind you, though, like Formula E, there is a lot more driver parity in Formula E.
Yes, there is.
I mean, because of the way they've set up the rules of that race, I think too, they have, a lot, like the fan boost and all sorts of things.
Also, I think with Formula E, it's a good way for road car manufacturers to learn what happens if every time your car sets off, there's almost immediately an enormous accident on the first corner. One final thought before we wrap up about the Lotus is that it can be charged at, I think it's up to 850 kilowatts on an 850 kilowatt charger, which is immense considering that.
That is immense, because the Tesla superchargers which are basically the fastest chargers you can get in the UK, I think, are 140 kilowatts.
Yeah.
So we're talking about...
Yeah, what the inverted commas fast chargers at the moment, like sort of the ones you have in motorway service areas are like 40, 50. The one on the front of my house is 7 kilowatt. That's about normal, and a lot of public chargers are still only 7. So 850 is immense. Of course, there are no 850 chargers at the moment, and I asked a bloke from Lotus, and I went, what I mean, because that's the headline thing they're saying, you can charge this car in 10 minutes, which is true if you can find 850 kilowatt charger. And I said, well, there aren't any, are there? And the PR guy went, no, but there will be. Admittedly, they'll probably first appear for buses. So I was like, so you've got to take your £2 million hypercar to a bus garage to charge up in 10 minutes. It's a kind of ongoing issue.
What I'm thinking here is, I'm just thinking, we're talking about 140 kilowatt Tesla superchargers, 850 kilowatt charging for the new Lotus. At what point do we get to 2.2 gigawatts?
Is that a reference to something?
Back to the Future.
Oh, is it?
Come on, don't you know Doc Smith?
Doc Brown?
Doc Brown.
Doc Smith. Doc Smith is something else.
Okay.
Doc Brown.
Doc Brown.
When
Marty McFly tells old Doc Brown how much power he needs for his time-travelling DeLorean, and he says it's 2.2 gigawatts. Doc Brown is so horrified by the thought that he's going to have to deal with an insanely huge amount of power that he almost falls over on the spot.
So that's to a bus garage.
Well, apparently, yeah. But bus garage in 10 years' time, you'll have your 2.2 gigawatt charger. Back to the Future.
We're always back
Doc
to the
Brown
future.
Will be very pleased.
Okay, I think that wraps that up.
I think it probably does.
I think we managed okay without Gareth for once.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we still missed you, Gareth.
We do. But hey, you'll be back soon enough, and you'll be hearing this in the meantime. So I hope this audio nugget nourishes you.
I feel like we're
on your
radio
or something. Yeah, I'm sorry.
He didn't. He sent a note that said, "Oh, remember to mention that the next show is the summer music special."
Right.
So remember to mention the next show is the summer music special.
The next show is the summer music special. Until then, that's it from me, Zog, and from Richard.
Goodbye.
And from Sarah.
Goodbye.
And we're going to leave you with a song by not-so-boyish boy band Take This, I'm in Love with a Car. Goodbye.
baby, especially your carbon fibre gear stick. I've got you on my desktop and in my mobile phone. I can't sleep without you, darling. Talk with me at home. I'm out, I'm proud. I can even say out loud, I'm in love with a car that stands out from the crowd. Oh, I'm out, I'm proud. I can even say out loud, I'm in love with a car that stands out from the crowd. That stands out from the crowd. Oh, girl, I wish you were a girl.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!